Hello everybody, and welcome to the LJL Officially Unofficial. We are covering match 2 of round 2 of the LJL Officially Unofficial, the LJL playoffs. I am your host, Alex, otherwise known as Lexi by Mars1 on the internet, and I am joined by the hardy and the heartening duo of the Hapgood brothers, Initialize and Nymera. As I say always, introduce yourselves, gentlemen.
And welcome to the Pajama stream.
Pajamas indeed.
It's currently 5 AM here in the UK. We are very tired. We changed our sleeping patterns on actually no, we didn't change it that much. I'm always awake at this time anyway.
Yeah.
Kind of. But yeah, we are going to do this bright and early. Do it live for once, and I'm really gonna look forward to it.
Dressed for the occasion. Looking sharp, by the way, my friends.
I like how they're both in pajamas, and like a hoodie is the closest thing I can actually get to pajamas for me. So I'm like, my default clothing, this fits perfectly. Very good, very good. Yeah. Can't wait for this.
His entire existence is wearing the same set of clothes because he knows it works.
It works, so I'm consistent with it. This series, though, that we have got for you gentlemen to cast and for me to kind of introduce and really build up, we are going to be seeing V3 Esports facing off against Crest Gaming Act. These are two of the titans of the LJL. In our last playoffs, in the summer playoffs, they were both in the top 3. So this is kind of familiar territory for these teams. Proving to be, with the new system, that this kind of worked out perfectly for CGA, and they went through their first round, as did V3. This is definitely going to be a matchup to play for, and the winner of this match, it's weird to say that the winner gets to do this. The winner faces against Detonation Focus Me. Truly going to be some remarkable matches. Gentlemen, thoughts? Go wild with this, honestly.
It might be familiar territory in terms of where we are now, but how we got here was anything but, particularly for Crest Gaming Act, who just about squeezed into playoffs by the skin of their teeth, basically off the back of one man, one myth, one demigod in the mid lane, Arya, who has been an utter monster this split and hard carried them through their last couple weeks to get them into playoffs. V3 on the other side had a pretty good end to the split, came out of the sort of last few weeks looking very strong, very coherent, very collected, and they have their own deity in the jungle in Boogie, who's been pretty superb. And CGA's first round of playoffs, tough work. Rascal Jesters were an inventive team who damn nearly put CGA into the dirt, really. That last game was very, very close, and Art in particular nearly carried the series, but they squeezed through into round 2. V3 kind of ran over Axis, and we're kind of here at a space where CGA have had to battle their way to get here, and V3 have kind of been coming in looking exceptionally confident, and I still don't know who's going to win.
If you want to let Nymera talk Initialize, that might be a good idea.
What he said. If we're going to talk about the end of the split, though, you said, Arya, he carried them through the end of the split. Well, they ended up, before the tiebreaker, being on a 4-game loss streak. You know what V3 are now on, including their 3-0 against Axis? They're on an 8-0 streak. That is almost matching up against DFM's 9-0. I think that was their
one behind.
That was their streak. They are 1 behind. If they win game 1 in spring, it's not regular season, they will be matching the win streak of DFM. They are. And also in this win streak includes a win over DFM. If they were to win this series, they would be going into the matchup against DFM much like Sengoku yesterday, with a 1-1 record against who are our historical top team juggernaut, really, in Detonation Focus Me, who were made to look fallible against Sengoku yesterday. So both of these teams, I think, will be heartened by that result in some ways, and also kind of a little bit worried in another way, because you have to still face DFM in a best of 5.
Yeah. That is slightly discouraging to think that, we just have to go against Sengoku after we have to beat DFM. Oh, this is gonna be a rough one. Let's just zoom back a little bit before, and let's just quickly dive into how we got here, really. So let's talk about playoffs specifically. Round 1 playoffs, we saw V3 facing off against Axis, and V3 had a very, very strong showing in their series. I don't know if I think you'd agree.
It was a 3-0. It never looked in doubt. Axes, as much as they are our Cinderella story, and we very much have a soft, I'd say a nice place and a special place in the heart for those players and what they managed to achieve after starting off so shakily and then kind of turning it around. V3 were just indomitable.
Yeah,
Ace had a very good series, comparative to his level in the regular split as well. His Syndra was terrifying.
Yeah.
I think his Syndra and his LeBlanc now are both picks, which I'm like, okay, if he gets a hand on those, he can definitely be a factor. And then Boogie was just the same old godlike performance.
And we had questions particularly about Ace and his champion pool and what was effective coming into playoffs, and he already showed things like the Rumble that came out and he looked pretty good on as well. And the fact that he has got that champion pool, which is making him harder to ban out, it is a real plus for V3 when we did have some questions where we said basically outside of his LeBlanc, outside of his Syndra, what has this guy got? Turns out one or two other things as well.
Let's quickly go over onto the side of Rascal Jesters facing off against Crest Gaming Act. That was a series that went the full 5 stretch, and I mean, it was kind of an upset for half of the analyst desk. Well, more than half, two-thirds actually.
So I think that the great ability of CGA is to make any team's matchup into a coin flip, and this is why it went to 3-2. Each game was a coin flip in a lot of ways. They finished out game 3 of that series in dominant fashion. I think that was with the Silas game when it was Silas versus the Kassadin, where Audio just kind of ended up popping off.
Gango on the Kai'Sa.
And Gango on the Kai'Sa was also terrifying to watch in that game. However, I think obviously if you want to go back and watch one game out of that series, it's game 5. I think that if you look at CGA and how CGA
as it gets.
Yeah, and about how CGA could beat a team like V3, I think that Grendel stepped up. I think Yoshi had a good game as well. Arya and Gango had some team fights to remember, and then Nap was also a rock in the top lane. So I think if CGA are to beat V3 today, they will look to emulate that performance.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think also there's something about with the way CGA play as well that is so ready for any fight, anytime, and we know that at their best they love to play.
What are they fighting over? Raptors!
Yeah. And then that is kind of a truth that them and Burning Call were very notorious for it. V3 to an extent as well. And that's what could make this matchup exceptionally exciting. CJ love to run with really heavy engaged dive comps, which Rascal Jesters to an extent found some answers for. The game 4 with the Kennen, for example, as kind of counter engage, really stymieing what they wanted to do. But if CJ and V3 kind of handshake and say, yeah, well, we'll both draft Dive and see who gets there first, we could be in for a very explosive, very short games.
So, I mean, obviously, I love to do this to both of you. I want to rip that Band-Aid off. I don't want any other reasons. I just want your pure gut. Who's winning?
I think it will be V3 3-2.
Okay.
V3 3-1.
Huh.
And I can give some
reasons. V3 3-0.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So we
know 3-0 predictions haven't gone well so far.
So,
but this is V3, so I mean it's a better spot.
If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be them. The reason that I think that it will be 3-2 is because of side selection. V3 are the higher seed coming into this. They chose blue side in each of their games versus Axes. They looked very good at drafting in each of those games. CGA, this split, the entirety of spring, have not won a game on red side.
How many games have they had?
They have only played 3 games on red side. They have chosen to play on blue more often than not, and they have lost every single game on red side. And I think that also speaks to the way that they try and draft as well. Sometimes they do try and hold out a counter pick for a little too long, and they end up having like too many bans put onto that role where they do have this select champion pool they need to start carrying with it. So I think that V3 doing the higher seed and getting side choice in games 1, 3, and 5, and CGO only getting game 2 and 4, meaning that I think that if they do pick blue side each of the teams, we could see it just go to the way of the blue team.
And I kind of want to echo that. I mean, there are some caveats in that CGA's record was not the best, and that is obviously going to hurt their stats in general. And 2, that I think coming into playoffs, a lot of teams have been prioritizing the blue side where they can. Look at yesterday where outside, that was the only one really where people weren't trying desperately to get themselves on blue side. That CGA V3 series, CGA Rascal Jester series rather, was in a similar state. And I wonder how much that kind of blue side priority is a thing on this patch in particular.
I don't know. I think it's... I'm more of the opinion that as we go into Champ Select, we'll have to find out what goes down. Good luck to both the teams, honestly.
And for once, it is not a blast from the past. It is a shot from the present. Thank you so much, Maswan. And we'll find out whose thoughts are right as we come into this champion select. It will be V3 on the blue side. It will be CGA on the red. And that means for V3, they have Paz in the top lane, Boogie in the jungle, Ace in the mid lane, Archer at bot lane carry, and of course, Reina in support with Coach Sun.
And on the other side of the rift, it's CGA, it's Nap in the top lane, Yoshi in the jungle, Arya in the mid lane, Gango in the bot lane, and Grendel as support. And because the game's already over, because V3 have chosen blue side, do you want to talk about Pokemon?
Sure. I want to catch them all, but I also quite a lot to talk about the bands that come.
It doesn't matter. They're on blue side.
Okay, that's fine. Okay,
that's
game's over.
Okay, no, so LeBlanc not wanting to be first picked by V3, it's banned away from their side. Arya, a very, very strong LeBlanc player.
Yes, he is.
Ace, however, is one of his best champions too. I think it would have been first pickable. They didn't choose to go towards that, though, instead removing the Sejuani, which Yoshi had some very good games against Hachimecha in their round 1 playoffs series. And also taking away the Varus, which we saw so much power out of Sengoku in their series yesterday. Whereas on the other side, CGA, taking away Boogie's Lee Sin, taking away Archer's Senna. Senna has been a permanent ban in a lot of these fixtures too. And then the Aphelios. So, Nap has played a lot of set.
Yes, he
has.
has.
I think V3 have to lock this in, otherwise he's going to get that champion.
And Paz is also a very good set. We saw some of his engages on this champion were pretty obscene versus Axis. He did some dumb things on that, and Paz has been stepping up coming into playoffs. We knew him in last playoffs as one of these kind of big top lane carries, clutch players, and certainly someone I trust on a champion like set to find engages. CGA thinking about responding with a Rek'Sai for Yoshi, though.
You might do that. However, I think that V3 are in this position where they can absolutely pick Zyra Khan in picks 2 and 3 here. Set Zyra Khan has been something that we've seen quite a lot of. And
They've
now
gone
that
towards the Callista.
So CJ have picked that. Gango has gone towards this when the likes of the Aphelios has gone away in the draft. But the Varus is normally the lane dominant pick, and that was banned away by V3. We'll see what they want to pick up in terms of their roles at this point. Because there's a top laner locked in, they've managed to match parity there. They might lock in Ornn for Ace. It is, we saw Seros play that yesterday in terms of the mid lane. Ornn, it makes things very tanky, and it's also a good nullifying pick against the likes of Arya, who loves to play assassins. And they're going to go straight for the Kai'Sa.
Yeah, and of course, that is one of those additional dive combos. You've already got an Ornn who'll be steering charge in. You've got the showstopper coming up from set, so there'll definitely be plasma stacks one way or another. And is a little bit of flex between the Ornn and the set. Could go in a couple of places. And
Yoshi, seeing that there are 2 tanky members, he can start shredding the resists off of locks in the Trundle.
Does love that pick.
He does love that pick. Although he has had some iffy games on it. He had maybe some better games on something like the Jarvan, not choosing to go towards that this time. As opposed to Boogie, he doesn't really like picking up the Jarvan himself. And speaking of Boogie, Echo is removed from his champion.
Rightly so. His KDA on that champion, as we mentioned a number of times on stream, is actually obscene. This guy had a 21 KDA in the regular split.
Yeah, over 3 games.
That is about as R-rated as it gets for a champion on this, like as far as.
Oh no, but if you R-rated as Echo, it just resets it. That's it.
That's a good idea. Be kind, rewind. Silas off the table as well, alongside a Nocturne.
Right, so Nocturne mid is a pick which Ace played twice in the regular season. They are one of our Nocturne mid lane teams, whereas the Silas has been taken away from Arya. This guy has made some miracles on that champion, so do not want him to pick up that.
Yeah, big time. And I think also the thing with the Nocturne is it's very much a flex pick. Way back in the LMS, Boogie was quite famous for his Nocturne. So taking that off the board, just a very powerful pick for V3 to think about getting rid of. As they get rid of a Kassadin, another one of these sort of scaling dive champions, and it's also that Arya can definitely run over a game on. We saw it not work out for Ninja on the Jesters when they picked it, but I can understand taking it away from Arya, perhaps.
Yeah, because you know it's going to be the Ornn at this point. It's the Ornn, really. So you don't want to have something which can safely scale up. So at this point, I'm trying to think, okay, what can safely lane versus the Ornn hurt him into the later stages of the game, and then also scale pretty well. I think the Zoe needs to be something that's considered. The support pick for Grendel is going to be Braum. We don't see too much of this out of him. Normally, he likes to go towards something more like the Thresh, which is not picked up for them. It's been then passed away. It's actually left undone. Ace is going towards the Jace.
It is something he's gone towards before.
And in the last regular season game between V3 and CGA, Ace picked up the Jace and won with it. And Boogie's going towards
Italy, my boy.
Right, so going into round 1 against Axis, we thought that Boogie's champion pool might be stretched, and then he comes out with an Italy in game 1 and absolutely power farms the heck out of the jungle, becomes very strong. I don't think he died that game. Oh no, he might have died once or twice, but he had a very impressive KDA nonetheless, and it leaves Arya to pick his last pick, choose his weapon.
But that means it's either a set or an Ornn jungle.
No.
Sorry, not Ornn jungle, it's set or Ornn support. Sorry, what I meant. It'll be set support, which makes a lot more sense. I had a moment of madness there. It's still early in the morning. I was like, where on earth is this Ornn going?
And especially because I just talked about, it's going to be Ornn mid, you want to pick stuff into that, then, I love being wrong.
Yeah, love being wrong.
Yeah. So, Azir versus Jace in the mid lane, there's a lot of damage there, lots of ways to set up in the 2v2, but not much setup for the likes of a Nidalee. What this means is that there is a bit of a crosshair pointed on the Kalista and the Braum because the only setup in these lanes for V3 is the set in terms of immediate CC unless the Searing Charge lands from the Ornn. Whereas on the other side, you've got Nazir with a Shuffle, you've got the Ruthless Predator from the Renekton, and of course you've got various forms of CC from CJ between the Fate's Call, the Glacial Fissure, and the concussive blows if Yoshi would make a trip down there at some point.
And you do have to keep an eye on those concussive blows. Is something that Kalista can really use to punish people if those Winter's Bites land. And that could be some serious danger for sure. I also think that actually Yoshi's Trundle pick makes a lot more sense than it has in past, just because he has picked into tanks one. Where in previous points when in the regular season, he'd just sort of pick it rather than necessarily doing it into tanks. So it does make a lot of sense here.
There's something to be said about that, but also it is a comfort pick for him.
That as well.
However, now you've got the problem of now the Trundle is kind of like playing against a non-tank jungle matchup, which means that he doesn't really, he's probably going to suffer if he walks into a Nidalee that way. And Boogie knows very well how to path and how to fight on that champion. This is, looking at the compositions, we have a lot of range on one side between the Ornn ultimate, Nidalee, Kai'Sa jumping in as well with the W's, and then
double long range poke with the Jason Nidalee.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the other side, we have a lot more initiation on the side of kind of like a Fate's Call, not the Fate's Call, sorry. When we've got like the Showstopper, we've got the Emperor's Divide as well. There are ways that I think CJ wants to get up close and personal in the fights before V3 start really chunking their health bars out.
Yeah, and as we come on to Rift, we're watching V3 group up here for a 5-man invade, but CGA are here as 4 anyway, so this could get interesting. Arya just catches the V3 invade, but they're just going to come in, drop some wards by the looks of it. The missing pings come out, and Renekton starts hovering around his own red buff.
And we saw what can happen with a disrupted level 1 start for junglers in yesterday's series between Sengoku and DFM. We still might see a fight here.
No, the area's got no soldier, and that means there's an exhaust has to come out already. Buki in a bit of trouble, has to flash over the wall. And that's a big concussive blow. Oh my days, first blood over to the Renekton. Reyna is dead.
Why do you level 1 versus a Braum Kalista? They have so many ways to fight you with their Halo Blades stacking up the concussive blows. Boogie tries to go in onto Arya, but the exhaust picked up from the mid lane and means that the initial burst is just not there. It's a kill over to Renekton, which is, in fairness, probably the better of the people to have those kills onto if you're a V3 fan, because you won't be able to snowball that lane quite as hard as maybe some of the others could have done. But then it's going to be a death for the set in the bot lane. Luckily, he will get back to lane in time not to miss any CS, though.
Yeah, it could have been worse, but it means that flash burn for Boogie, flash burn for Reyna, and an extra longsword in a Renekton's inventory. And Renekton early is still strong, even if he is into a nullifying pick of Ornn.
Yes, and one thing which is quite interesting. So Kalista hasn't used her Black Spear yet. We don't actually have a.
Curious.
We actually don't have any. Well, she won't have leveled the W anyway at this point, but no soul bonded partner.
Potentially thinking about saving it for someone like the Renekton or the Trundle, but you don't get to use your W passive really unless you've got a bonded partner in lane. So could be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah, so we'll see if they end up finding a break in the laning phase to have that long, lengthy animation to, you know, just kill your support and then resurrect them with the spear.
But for now, also worth keeping an eye on Arya. With the exhaust down, there is room that if a spear lands and some decent poke lands from Ace, that this Azir could go down to an early gank, but we'll keep an eye on that. He's still got flash, still has all the ability that is offered by the shuffle and the shifting sands from an Azir, so we'll see how that goes.
And Arya has been a very big playmaker on the Azir as well. The first time we saw it, I'm trying to remember which team I think he played versus Axis in the regular split, had some really good shuffles into that team. But then obviously the late game, unfortunately, didn't work out for them in that particular game. I believe that was on the blue side as well, actually, not one of the red side losses. But okay, yeah, so things to note, it is Halo Blades Kai'Sa. That's kind of the new tech on that champion now. Gets you up to your first passive proc very easily. You're looking for more burst. You build towards more AP after your third item. You kind of go into Muramana, and then Rage Blade, and then Nash's Tooth into AP. And you just try and get your passive, which scales off for AP anyway, and just do a lot of damage.
You saw that Yoshi going into...
Boogie.
Look, I saw that one. Yoshi going in to try and find Boogie in this jungle's Boogie does find his way over the wall on the second bounce. Archer's
really
taken very low, but Nidalee is actually going to come around for a gank, having gone and cleared her blue side. She walked all the way down the bottom as Yoshi comes into the mid lane, going to try and get a pillar in front of Ace, but can't get there in time. Helping Arya push out, going to maybe contest over this Scuttle Crab, but look, the Halo Blades... duo in the bot lane gone to take off that Scuttle Crab.
Look at those deep wards. Look at those deep wards put down from CJ. There's one over onto Krugs. There was one into Tribrush as well, which was just swept out. No, that was just okay. No, I'm lying. But basically, just Gango and Grendel use the priority they use for one of those heavy trades we were seeing on screen as the Kalista, who does have that strong early game, to make sure that Boogie couldn't take the scuttle, and they took it themselves. It means that neither jungle will get that bottom scuttle, whereas actually Yoshi gets himself the top lane, the top side scuttle. So it's both scuttles over to the side of CJ, none to the side of Boogie in particular.
Yeah, and gonna be interesting to see how this Nidalee does, having had a slightly scuffed level 1. Nice W there from Kai'Sa to prevent the easy back. We'll delay that just slightly. Probably not going to mean all that much though, because the wave was pushed all the way in. But either way, it's a feel-good moment.
They still get to reset anyway. It's a couple of seconds off. It might end up losing them like 2 minions to tower, but they're still doing well in this laning phase. Kalista picks up the Berserker Greaves to get that martial poise jump distance even higher, and of course the attack speed going along with it means the mobility of Gango is now very, very high on the Kalista.
Yes, it is. And Black Spear still in inventory, has not used it at all. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going on there, whether that's a deliberate choice or whether there's just a bit of nerves in play. Got to assume deliberate. Got to assume deliberate.
We'll assume that for now. We'll see if it ends up becoming relevant at some point. Because let's be honest, Braum doesn't end up auto-attacking too much. Ooh,
has used it now. Has used it now. It's off now. Okay. As Ace does take a big trade in the mid lane. Onto Arya, who's now at about half HP. But Yoshi is using the pressure he has around this bot side of the map to start up an early Cloud Drake.
He is indeed trying to stack up those early dragons up towards one of those late game souls. The Cloud Soul will be removed from the Rift because they won't spawn after this one. And we do see a bit of trading
going in here, but so Boogie's around as well. This Nidalee's here. Exhaust goes down onto this Jace. And level 6 has been hit by Arya first. But is quickly ticked over by Ace, but he is slightly less excited about a level 6 point.
Yeah, he is a little bit, whereas Gango just lands that pierce to get another chunk out of Archer, who's now missing 15 CS compared to Gango, and another Winter's Bite lands as well.
Facebreaker missing is a bit sad. This is the pressure that the Kalista and Braum can exert in lane. Not finding all that much of the Kai'Sa and the set, but assuming Kai'Sa can survive, she's gone for the cull and not fall too far down. Will still hit mid game with a fair amount of relevance, but she's got to get that without losing too much. As Yoshi just misses the spear.
Miss the spear. Came out of the fog of war. Archer and Reyna are a bot lane that we have praised a lot, actually. I praised Archer in particular. Reyna has also been one of the better supports. I think he's probably all of our second best supports in the LJL after Gang of DFM. They are currently losing this lane pretty hard. It is an early pressure lane of the Kalista Braum. They have so many ways to try and kill you in lane, like with the Halo Blades alongside the Concussive Blows, like we were talking a little bit before. But Archer and Reyna, we know that they can scale into a point in the game where their team fights are so deadly, but they need to survive this laning phase to make sure they are relevant going into those fights.
And that is very true. As Boogie's around again, and they're going to try and find maybe
this is the one lane we're set up. This is the one lane we're set
up. There's no
up.
level 6s yet, so there's maybe room if Reyna can get in. Here we go. Boogie's around. Gango and Grendel going to try and get away. I think they're just going to walk out.
There's a bit of minion block onto Reyna there, who's looking probably for a flash face breaker. The one setup tool for Boogie's spears if he is trying to
trade in the top lane. Paz taken very low. Remember, Nap got that early start, forces a flash out of Paz with the Dominus.
He does indeed. Ends up pushing up a little too far, does Paz. Currently at a 10 CS deficit. This can be a hard lane for the Ornn with the early kill onto the Renekton. That doesn't make anything particularly easy either. But he's built up to the Barmy Cinder, clears out the wave. He's not lost too much XP. He can probably teleport back to lane as well if he so wishes. Ace is now taking a bit of a trip into the top river. He's probably just going for the Scuttle Crab, just wondering if he could have seen an opening towards this top side of the map. We've actually had the stream very... so we had a bit of a pause in the stream. So we might actually be a couple of seconds behind everything now.
Such is life, but we're still around. We're still paying attention. There's nothing too much is going on.
56, 57, 58. Oh, it's paused again. Okay, this might be a bit of a lag issue then. I don't know whether it is a streaming thing. It is currently paused for us. Do the thing. Okay, so it's 59, 8, 801, 802. Oh, shit. Okay, it is just continually pausing for us right now. So
that's unfortunate.
we can talk a little bit more about the meta state of the game, but if something happens, then that is okay. In that case, we will do that very quickly.
Technical difficulties are always a joy for all of us, so we'll be right back in a couple seconds as we relaunch VLC.
This is the pain of doing stuff in the Blaster in the present, huh?
I know.
That's not true because we are doing the live stream right now, so currently our timestamp is at 9 minutes, hopefully. That means that we see that there is no current kills through for CGA after that first blood. That is the only kill on the map so far coming into the kind of the ending phase of the early game here.
9-12, 9-13, 9-14. We ended up ahead of you. It's all gone wrong. And we paused up anyway a little bit here.
Okay, so...
Okay. So we're at 9:23 right now.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to wait until you had the timestamp ready for us.
You got to keep it paused, man. We'll wait.
Okay, right, so we'll try and work through this. Sorry guys, this is just something about trying to do a bootleg broadcast, particularly with some internet issues on our side of the world as well. Is there still no action particularly that we're missing? Luckily, it wasn't actually like
a gank in the mid lane there. Yeah, it's our producers like, yep, no, I'm not gonna miss anything. That's fine.
Not indeed.
Do just want to double check our timings. We're coming up to 9:59:10. I think we should be about okay. It's still about in time. Boogie here, up to a decent CS lead, but hasn't done all that much in the early game as of yet. Does land a spear onto Arya, though, who's now in trouble. Forces out that exhaust on the Jace.
For the second time as well. Ace actually finding a lot of good trades onto the Azir here, abusing the early power of this kind of bursty matchup, which you can have with the Jace in the mid lane.
Yeah, just throwing a spear from out of vision and just walks away, and that's more than enough to force that out. And actually a slight CS lead to this Jace early on.
It is indeed. So we still see we see a gold lead to the side of CJ. It is not insurmountable right now. They do have themselves an early dragon as well, but that hasn't led to any game-breaking advantages just yet.
No, it has not. We're looking at there is that slight gold lead to CJ that we've been talking about. That is a good start for them. Kalista, probably the main proponent of that, along with the first blood. But there are still a lot of room for V3, and there's still some Drakes on the board as this Mountain Drake is live and on the Rift.
It is indeed. So that means no Mountain Rift available as well. It will either be the Ocean or the Infernal, two very strong souls as we do kind of go into the later parts of the game. We saw that the souls can be absolutely game deciding in our series yesterday, and a spear does land onto Arya, which, does some damage.
Does indeed, and it's just keeping him a little bit respectful. We know how Arya likes to play, and the fact that he is being troubled, I guess, by this mid 2v2. And this with Boogie just hanging around looking to keep him under the cosh a little bit as that shot blast and spear both miss. Aria with some swift feet to avoid that.
Yes, indeed. And another spin.
That one.
And that actually might buy V3 this second dragon because Arya doesn't run the teleport on this champion right now. He's run the exhaust, which he has been forced to blow either way. So he's going to be stuck under his mid lane turret just trying to wave clear a bit. And it does buy this kind of overflow of pressure in mid lane, buys bot lane a bit of space to work with as well.
Does that. And Yoshi is still here, still not willing to give this up quite yet, as Arya's in lane, not gone back.
V3 so start up the dragon.
They have started it up, but Yoshi and the rest of CGA look like they want to contest. Paz is here on the Ornn. This could be our first serious fight of the game. Winterspite does miss. Reyna stepping forward. I think CGA is going to back away. Yeah. No fight.
No fight, but there is a dragon as a casualty too. That's so no too early drakes to either team, which we can see change the flavor of the macro going to the mid game because all of these teams will try and kind of contest around that.
Yeah, and the shock blast comes through as Arya is just doing his best to stay alive in this lane. It's down about 10 CS, but that's about it right now. Bot lane, though, going significantly in the favor of this Kalista still.
It is. This is a lane dominant pick, certainly the one which has been most successful for Gango, particularly. No, we have seen the likes of Varus as well do pretty well in laning phase, but Kalista does have that overwhelming all-in potential with the Halo Blades in the early game.
And for a pair of teams we thought would be very explosive early, this has been 1 kill in 13 minutes, which is not what I was expecting.
Sure, but normally we know these teams to be snowball teams as well, and maybe they're just a little wary of each other, making sure that they're not giving over any unnecessary advantages.
I can see that too. There's something to that, and either way, at the minute, CGA coming out on top via the laning phase at least, with perhaps the exception of this Jace and Nidalee, who with the Jace probably going roughly even outside of some good poke trades, and the Nidalee
so there's been
farming
well. There's been pressure from the Jace, but it's not led to any advantages for the 1v1. Boogie's actually been spotted out by Nap, who's pushed out and put a ward there into the top side jungle, spotting out the Grom spawn as well. Just going to say, I know you're taking farm now.
Yeah, and it means that Yoshi is free to do something on the other side of the map, but Set is actually doing a bit of a roam up the river to see what's going on. Has been on wards the entire way though, so not gonna amount to all that much.
And actually, in the round one, not quarterfinals, the round one matchup of CJ versus Rascal Jester, Grendel showed he had a good support set as well. So it'd be interesting to see what Reyna can do on this champion himself. It is one of those larger engaged champions with the showstopper into the haymaker. It can just really disrupt a team fight and start things off on the right foot.
I do quite like the Braum into it though. Just the fact that you can throw out a Winterspite, have got the glacial fissure and those concussive blows means that as he's trying to run forward, you can just slow him and stun him as he comes at you.
But picture this, right? He has the shield up and you showstopper in behind the team. That shield no longer does anything.
It no longer does anything, and of course Braum does build a fair amount of HP.
It does.
So it could be quite a good damage.
It's not quite the same as the Tahm Kench.
No, not quite the Tahm Kench, and certainly not like a 10,000 HP Scion or Cho'Gath, but
which Nap does play the Cho'Gath, so we might see some of those iterations if this series goes on.
Yeah,
Boogie's starting up the Herald.
He has started up the Herald, and Yoshi is on that top side of the map, so may want to contest. There are on the way pings from CGA. They are not going to give this up for free. V3 going to have to be a little bit careful as the contest is about to come in. Yoshi's over the wall with the blast plant. Nap is here as well. Ornn is just about to start roaming down as well. Remember, Call of the Forge goes here. Yoshi takes a big shock blast face as Grendel gets jumped on. He's in a lot of trouble. Here comes the Call of the Forge God onto the people at the back. They might have to flash out here. Yoshi avoids the spear. Everyone flashing out. No deaths, but the Rift Herald does go over.
Oh, Gango's here. Archer's in trouble.
Archer is in trouble. Has to flash over the wall. Is Gango going to follow? No.
Oh, Arya almost followed himself, though. So, V3 getting themselves the advantage around that Herald fight. Yoshi took the blast plant over, but then couldn't get the angle on the fight. Grendel was not there to block the Call of the Forge God with the Braum either. The shield was not in position, and then the big chunks from the Brittle Pox came through. Herald to the side of V3, but a good siege from CJ to at least take a little bit of a chunk from the V3 mid lane outer turret.
They have as Nap's going on in Paz. Paz got a decent trade there with the Brittle Prop, but takes a fairly heavy Cole the Meek to the face for some decent stuns, but it's going to move on from there.
Okay, and Boogie's found his way to the top side of the map as well. After Renekton's used that Dominus, maybe we could see something made of this. Nap just making his way out safely, though.
And thus far, this Nidalee hasn't got as much done in the early game as she did the last time. is still around, as much to pick up a Herald, picked up a Drake, so still finding some advantages, but nothing in terms of the kill score right now.
But it's a 2-level advantage for Boogie, right?
Yes,
the Boogie.
The Boogie.
The Boogie is like, okay, well, that is a champion. The Boogie in the jungle has a 2-level advantage. Level 10 right now.
Wow.
Unfortunately, not the same can be said for Archer in the bot lane on this Kai'Sa, currently at a level deficit. Level 8, Degango is level 9, but he does have the Manamune in inventory to start stacking up towards that first scaling item on the Kai'Sa.
Yeah, and that's going to be, at least with her got the pickaxe, well, I believe she'll have the Q evolution, which is a big deal.
Double pickaxe will get you that, for the record.
Yeah, that's good news. So this Kai'Sa is ready to contribute to fights, at least. Has run with the exhaust. We are seeing more AD carries run towards this at the minute. You saw him actually do it the other day to fairly significant advantages for himself on the Varus in particular. So interesting to see that picked up on the Kai'Sa too, as the Herald is summoned in mid lane.
It is, and this will take out the entire turret as well. It's after plates have gone down, of course, so none of those extra gold bonuses go in the way of V3. V3 slipping into a bit of a comfortable map state now. They managed to win around that Herald, win around the mid lane as well. They're going to try and get up to their second dragon. But this is where CGA's Miracle Team Fight might come into something.
Yeah, we're going to see how it goes. Congestion is going to start. Pillar comes out onto Paz, but that's about it for now. Throws out his own pillar, and that seems to be it, as CGA walking back up this river towards the mid lane, as an Arya just holding court down here around the Dragon Pit, as they actually started up without their jungler.
So the dangerous thing is now, Azir has his soldiers set up. He might have a better angle to try and get a streamer shuffle in. They're on the objective.
Dragon's HP, here comes the call of the Forge Guard, gonna come
the
through,
pillar!
misses it. That pillar was so good. Decent shock blast onto Grendel though, as he puts a glacial fissure out. Gonna try and use it. Here is the Fate's call. It goes up onto Set. He goes down. Boogie's in the back of the pit, but has to pounce his way straight back out, and that will mean Dragon secured by CGA, you assume. And actually, you say the Yondel's really low. Close. And actually, Nap is the one that secures that.
Okay, Yoshi, take a bow. That pillar was absolutely fantastic, denying the call of the Forge Guard from Paz. Nap dives into the backline on this Renekton as well, getting a lot of work done. And the scary thing is, there was no Emperor's Divide even needing to be used in that fight. We're going to go into the replay now as well. So, we know that these early Drakes are such a priority for these teams. Paz just gets bumped out of that ultimate and means that the disruption now is in the favor of CGA and the Renekton. This Dominus at rank 2 is so strong in terms of the HP and damage it does. And, you know, just no angle found from V3 in that fight. We don't say that often about this team.
No, not at all. And it means that right now the gold is 500 apart. Not all that much difference. It's a slight Drake lead to CGA, but that is it. This game is very damn close. Kill lead to CGA, tower lead to V3. Grendel takes a face breaker from across the wall, but that's about all there is to write home about right now.
Yeah, that's all she wrote really for now. Maybe when we see Archer gaining some items, we will see some more interesting plays in terms of diving on and trying to kill either Gango or Arya. There's double exhaust for the side of CGA though. One on Grendel, one on Arya. We've seen Arya use it a couple of times to at least survive the trades against Ace, but if you do that against a Kai'Sa diving in who is trying to get that first kill and then move on and clean up the rest of the team fight, it could end up spelling defeat for V3.
Yeah, it absolutely could. CGA and V3 kind of falling back into a little bit of that comfortable map state, that lull state, as Boogie finds 3 men wandering through his jungle, but they appear to be just on a bit of a warding mission right now. And Yoshi up to just the level behind now. And of course, we expect Nidalee to come out strong early with their farm leads. It's what they do. But right now, Yoshi doing well to at least be relevant, put up a couple really key pillars, has 100% kill participation. Arya as well, they're picking up CGA's first turret of the game in that bot lane.
Yeah, and I think that Boogie hasn't had enough setup to really start landing spears. He's done some damage, like we saw him land a couple in a row into Arya, but it's not been consistent enough to buy them a lot of priority around some of the objectives. They did find a period of time where they were on that objective, the first Ocean Drake, before CGA, but then they just kind of got forced off as they were a little bit wary of the positioning from that team as well. CGA, particularly this Renekton, is very strong in the early game. I think V3...
the Rune King complete as well.
The Rune King's completed as well. He will continue to be very strong. Nap has been one of the more consistent top laners.
One hit.
That one does hit, and that means that Arya will not be able to defend this turret, even though he took the outer turret on the other side of the map. He will end up losing the one in the top lane.
Yeah, and it is worth saying, I think, some credit to CGA for some good warding around that last Drake. Meant that a lot of the poke was kind of coming from in vision, makes it a lot easier to dodge those Nidalee spears when you can see them from a screen away rather than just 2 inches.
There's something to be said about that because it's an ocean rift, right? There are a lot more brushes to start taking track of because there are, there are more angles you need to be aware of. Archer has himself the Rage Blade now, double item, power spike for the Kai'Sa, will probably be going towards the Nash's 2/3 unless this is a callback to the older, more traditional AD carry build and something like the Rune's Hurricane.
But, I do want to call that out, actually, that vision a little bit more. Remember yesterday with Sengoku Gaming, they ran the 4 sweepers multiple times when they had these poke Varus that was shooting arrows from the, and a Zoe at the first game, just shooting out from the blackness that really punished DFM, particularly the likes of Steel on a quite squishy Elise, even with the Zhonya's involved, meant they could never get involved to this phase. And we could see someone like V3 wanting to pull off a similar thing here when they have got the double poke in it. Even Archer with the W coming through to add on to that.
Yeah, this about that. So when we're talking about a lot of these teams, though, and we're talking about this Renekton in the earlier game, there's something to be said about what happens after the early games ended. There's an Azir and there's a Kalista on one side. There's a Kai'Sa on the other. I would say that the Kai'Sa outscales the Kalista. Most people would agree that. But of course, Azir is one of the premier late-game teamfight monstrosities. I think mainly in this game, though, it's more about target accessibility than the damage you have available to you. We saw in that last fight right around the dragon that it doesn't matter if you have, if you have the positioning, if you get outplayed.
Maybe you have to wait a little bit as Arya takes a shot left, but Boogie now in trouble. Gango around the back.
Grendel?
Boogie flashes out, and Ace just got blast planted in, but Reyna gets a kill onto Grendel. He's just gone.
Yeah,
I was worried about Ace.
That was a really good showstopper.
Here comes the shield. That's a massive deal. And Nap goes up. He's got a dominance in, but he's taking a lot of damage. Flashes on Archer, but Archer returns the favor. But now Reyna is in trouble himself. Yoshi has put the subjugate down, and Gango is still healthy enough to force people back. And I think that's going to give CGA positioning over this mid lane tower.
It will do to a certain extent. Grendel goes down as the only casualty of that fight, but it could be a mid lane tower as well. Arya still has shuffle. They need to be a little wary here.
Yeah, but they've got enough wave clear, I think, to the side of V3 from a decent enough range that it's going to save their tower. What it will not save, though, is the Drake that's about to spawn as V3 go, fine, you want to start that? They're going to start Baron. They've got Rage Blade on Kai'Sa. They've got enough damage and this Athene's. I think they might think about it, but no, not quick enough. And that Ocean Drake went down far too quickly for that to be a real trade option.
Okay, so CGA, I was saying that on the red side, sometimes they can get a bit out-drafted. They can get a bit out-fought as well. But they're coming up very strong in the first game so far, getting themselves up to Ocean Soul point at 23 minutes into this game. Baron is now alive. We saw V3 poke their head towards it. They did have the Rage Blade on the Kai'Sa, one of the stronger Barons taking 80 carries. But at this point in the game, it doesn't shred as quite as fast as it would have done in previous seasons if you had something like a Mountain Drake or something like that, when it gave you the extra damage to neutral objective. It's only the extra scaling resists now.
All right. It's also worth pointing out as far as scaling, I feel, which is probably fairly even, I think, in some ways. But
it's conditional, right? Because it's more about, it's not about the damage you have on your champions. It's more about how you can get it down. Because we can talk about Nidalee, right? A max range Nidalee spear has a huge AP ratio. But it never lands. Let's be honest, most of the spears are not going to land. But if it does land, then you talk about a different story,
game,
right? It's more about the execution. And we talk about Azir as well. What happens if Azir gets his soldier set up in a fight compared to the ones where he doesn't? There are lots of ways these fights can play out. I'm not willing to call it on team comp alone this game. And that's why we see at 25 minutes into this game, there is less than 200 gold in this game.
But the one thing I will say is that Ornn, now at level 13, is going to give his upgrades to other players beyond this as well, and that could tip things in their favor. There's definitely a few people who would quite happily take upgrades from the Forge God himself, and we'll see how that goes as levels come in for this Ornn.
They do. So there is the Wraith Blade available to Ace, who has the Ghost Blade available. That's one of the Ornn upgrades, which will give him more lethality. It means that poke will stick a bit more, has himself the Edge of Night as well. That's probably going to be the first upgrade. It's the only upgradable item in inventory as we currently stand. There's nothing on the Archer right now. That's something that we do need to question. Maybe he might be able to build towards a Zhonya's 3rd. That would be an item which he could upgrade, but that would have to be a 4th rather after the Nash's.
Definitely a potential. Arya has got his Sun turret set up in mid lane, has been using that to kind of that pseudo turret to maintain some control and safety around this mid lane. Because of course V3 picked up that outer turret a while ago, and that's given them some advantages there. But right now, it is Baron setup that's the key here. They are going to start it. They're on the ward though. So is it just a bait? Yoshi misses avoids the spear rather, and that's going to be a big deal. Nap continuing to shove in that bot lane, but V3, yeah, kind of struggling to find out where they want to be on this map. Going to take out the control ward here.
V3 are trying to make this game not about Nap, who is winning a lot of priority and becoming so strong in these team fights. If they slip up in their positioning, though, we could see Aria coming off to a huge lead. Gango is kind of just going up towards these Krogs here, getting himself a little bit more farm. He's got another Vamp Scepter in inventory, which will build probably towards something like the Bloodthirster, probably for the extra shield. Gives you that extra kind of tanking ability in the initial parts of a fight, and then sustaining through it.
Yeah, I'm kind of going to wonder whether we want to see a Grievous Wounds coming through at some point with the
double
blade of the ring.
There are double Grievous Wounds. There's a Bramble Vest on Paz, and there's also the Executioners on Ace.
Good to know.
They've thought about it. They got it covered.
Because, of course, that is a big deal when you've got double lifesteal items in for Nap and Callista, which could be fairly big news in these team fights. But Ace is going to require landing that poke.
Big news. So one sword has turned into another. The Mana Mulia is gone. Long live the Mirror Mana for Kai'Sa. Has himself that double item upgrade, so he is more than ready to fight alongside the other AD carry on the other side of the Rift.
Just pointing out that Ornn hasn't actually upgraded an item yet. I wonder whether they're waiting for an item completion here.
There's the Ghost Blade available from Ace, and I think they just haven't been grouped. I don't think Ornn and Jace have been in the same part of the map for quite a long time now. And they will have to be soon, though, because it is a minute until this Ocean Soul fight. If CGA were to get that, we know this Soul is very, very good at deciding team fights. And yeah, this could be a good news story for CGA. Although V3 were looking towards that Baron, they've done it a couple of times before now.
They are here, and this time there's no real vision, and V3 are going to start it. They will take it very fast with that Rage Blade available. Nap's coming around the corner, won't have to teleport. CGA here to contest. V3 looking to punish. Grendel step forward. He gets taken by the Facebreaker, throws out the stopwatch. Nap has put his dominance down. He takes a spear, and it means absolutely nothing, as now Ornn, Paz stuck in this front line, taking all the damage. Nap gets a massive Cull the Meek as Arya chases Ace away. It's a 3v4 on the top side. Kai'Sa desperately trying to put out damage. Reyna has got that grit all up, has used the killer instinct, and Gango on this Callista does a lot of damage. That's a good showstopper from Reyna, but it's not enough as Gango is popping off. It's a triple kill. It's a quadra kill. Does all the damage. Penny got the Penta. He's got the option. Ace blast planting away, desperate not to give it over, and Gango isn't going to chase for it.
Gango takes the game into his own hands. V3 try and make the game about them, not play to the tune of CGA. We've seen them try and do that in some of their games in the regular split, but this time they just can't form a tune quick enough, and they still dance to the beat of CGA's drum, and they are torn apart around that baited Baron.
And it is such a big deal. What plays from Gango on this Callista got off to such a great early lead. Just walk us through this replay.
So Grendel ends up popping the stopwatch, getting caught out early, but there are a couple of cooldowns used like the Facebreaker. Paz, importantly, he doesn't use the Searing Charge to get at it. So the pillar was already there. He ends up angling it wrong, goes straight into the face of it, doesn't flash out either. So the Call of the Forge God is not available in this fight. And that is one of the bigger teamfight disruption tools which V3 have available to them. Ace has a good combo after the showstopper, brings back Nap into the turret on the Renekton, but then Gango has not been focused this entire fight and picks himself up all 4 of the kills.
And now out of a quadra kill, he has a Blade of the Ruin King, a More of the Malmortius, a Hurricane, and a Vamp Scepter. This Callista on top of an Ocean Soul is going to be nigh unkillable.
It's huge. It's huge. He's
Look at those gold leads for the coup carries.
And also he's level 15. You know, this guy's about to hit rank 3 in his ultimate, the Fate's Call, and that means that it's just always off of cooldown for Grendel as well, who has been, we saw there, the guy to kind of jump in first. He's not getting deleted in the way that we saw the first kind of kill go towards him earlier in the game. Braum is going to be hard to remove from the map now.
And with CGA now walking into V3's blue side jungle, vision over this Baron is in scarce amounts. There is still, of course, the Skull Crab. There's still the the one ward that Nap is stood on top of. They're throwing down that blue trinket, and the Callista, right, is stacking up those spears. CG, I'll tell you around. There comes that huge shuffle in the backline. But Gango dancing in the backline. Killer Instinct, he's got down. Archer's got down. Archer's there. Nap's alone, and Arya is shutting down everyone else on the other side. Boogie can't land the spear. It's a double over to Arya, but Gango does go down. The spear onto Nap. I think it's going to end there, but 2 for 1 for CGA around this Baron.
That's
a
huge kill for Archer, though. That means that the pressure, well, the Baron potential is now gone from CGA, even though the Azir is very good at taking that objective. Having the Rend is normally the thing which tips over teams to really start the Baron and try and have that 60-40 smite as opposed to the 50-50.
But what do V3 do from this point? They land some Nap's going in. Archer has nothing left. He throws a stopwatch out. I think he's still just going to fall, and he does. And all of this poke means nothing to the power of 3 Ocean Drakes and Ocean Soul.
That pillar was just huge again. Yoshi has been just
really
finding
good with those.
Yoshi's pillars have been on point thus far in game 1. He's been catching out the less mobile carries, particularly when you have something like the Kai'Sa with no ultimate available.
Going on to Ace, who has to flash out that pillar again from Yoshi.
It is there again once more. They have the Ocean Soul to keep themselves tops up as they try and take this dragon as well, but it was delayed due to that earlier turn onto
Callista's
Ace.
back. She's around. There is some poke coming through. Nap now about half HP. Ace has gone golden. I'm not sure that was a great idea. He's going to fall, you think.
Oh, the shuffle!
That shuffle onto everybody. Throwing Reyna into the death chamber. Paz searing charges. Bellow breath. Everything. And it's not enough to save him from a Callista. Her vengeance is complete. And that means with 3 people dead, CGA return to this Baron. Boogie's alive, but it would be a miracle steal at best.
It would be a miracle steal, and he's not even going to attempt it, knowing that if he goes down, maybe the game will go with it. I think now V3's only option is to try and steal an Elder Dragon, and even then, I don't think it's a 1 game, because these health bars are never going to get down into that execute range if you don't end up bursting in the correct way. I think that CJ have been fighting very well on the front foot, using a lot of their disruptive abilities to hold the backline of E3 accountable, and they've been tearing through the front line if it does become a front-to-back team fight.
I'm beginning to feel a little nervous about my prediction earlier on, because CGA are looking more and more composed as these weeks go on right now.
I mean, I'm now kind of hitting myself a little. I predicted in the podcast that it would be a CGA victory, and I was a little unsure about that. There's nothing unsure about this game 1. Arya's looked very composed on the Azir, and Gango has been a force to be reckoned with on the Calista. We've seen it a couple of games in the regular season. That stopwatch puts Ace in a bit of a pickle there. Didn't have the flash or the exhaust either, and then this shuffle is just you love to see it, and there's no threat onto him at that point as well. There's no one really to turn around onto him. The fight is effectively over, and Paz goes down as a matter of course.
And the martial poise from Calista.
Oh, he's got some death cap.
Yeah, that is an Azir who is ready to ascend and turn this rift into a bit of a desert. Ocean Soul will not welcome to Shurima's latest annexation, which it is apparently going to be V3's down base. He has got 3 items, and they are quite mighty items indeed.
All your base are belong to us. And just can I say, like, he goes for this Lost Chapter stinger early on the Azir. And he just, like, doesn't finish the Ludens. He just keeps the Lost Chapter around.
Boogie's
and he's
just gonna, like, get chased away from his own jungle.
He's just like, I'm just gonna keep this Nidalee around. I don't need to kill you right now. I'm just gonna keep you around.
Yeah, and never mind annexing V3's base. He's annexing Boogie instead, is Arya, as Yoshi throws down another pillar onto Archer, but he turns it around.
Oh,
big charge! They're going to try and turn this around, but Nap is in with a big Dominus. That other Shuriman ascended is doing all the work. The showstopper is there. Nap is golden, though, and cares not as Azir shuffles the side of V3 into their doom, and a game 1 victory. CGA going to come out of this one 1-0.
And CGA, we thought they couldn't win on the red side, just shows they were just sandbagging on us all along. Game 1 goes to CGA, first blood. Masked Swan. We're going to bring it back to you for our end of our game 1 thoughts. Obviously, we had a couple of technical difficulties there.
These things happen.
You know, that's just whatever. It was a fun game to watch either way. Ardia and Gango with some good showings, right?
With some really impressive showings. I mean, I really want to honestly say Yoshi was probably my MVP of that game.
I agree with you, actually.
Pillars were basically how they won those games. Like, if Ornalt actually went through, I think as intended, fights happened totally differently, knockups and everything else. Yoshi was on point multiple times with only displacing Boogie to also just stopping from your own ults to just... Honestly, I think this might have been Yoshi's best game, and what a game to actually decide to show up.
I completely agree. I'm not sure we necessarily praised him enough in the cast, actually, because we came out with surprise. I remember I exclaimed with some, like, that pillar once or twice coming up, but there was the Ornn interrupt, which was so good. That sort of entrance from the blue side into the Baron as well, where he put some pillars up to block up multiple people. Force killer instincts with it. Great stuff.
There was the fight where Gango got 4 kills, and that was started out by a good pillar to lock off Paz from the rest of his team.
Finished by another one as well.
It was finished by another one as well. But I mean, in that case, obviously, like, Paz kind of held onto his flash a bit long. But, you know, there's a difference between an unforced error and a forced error. Yoshi made sure it was a forced error because, you know, he made sure the situation was there where the mistake could be made. He wasn't abused in the early game that we have seen him do being sometimes. He was a little bit down in levels against an Italy. That's kind of to be expected. Yeah. But the team fights, it just didn't show. He built up to a Spirit Visage with the Ocean Soul. He just never died.
I mean, it all kind of started at that level 1, really, I think, for kind of CGA and V3. It was a...
Level 1 versus Braum!
Yeah, just, I mean, obviously, Reina, the support dying was the worst part in a way. It would almost have been better if it was... I don't know. I just think, obviously, that bot lane duo then just fell so far behind. I don't know. I think CGA just played really well, honestly.
So the flash was taken away from Nidalee in that level 1, which wasn't particularly impactful. I'm trying to remember if Reina actually flashed. I don't think he did in that level 1. He was just stunned up and died. He got back in lane in time.
He did flash. He had a flash.
Yeah. So and then not having the flash versus a Kalista Braum, knowing that they can all in you at any time, and not having that threat, the flash phrase breaker, which is one of the big playmaking tools you have as the set, can tilt that lane. So yeah, I think that Gango and Grendel had a very good showing in terms of their laning phase. We've seen Archer and Reina run over games when they get a good lead from the laning phase, and that just didn't happen this game, of course.
Yeah, and I do want to kind of pick up on a bit of a meta trend on that one, in that we are seeing increasingly that level 1 plans are winning games here in the playoffs. Yeah. Sengoku Gaming had some stellar ones versus DFM. We saw the great response here from CGA, which punished V3's level 1 plans. And I'm curious to see how that will continue with the rest of the series, for sure.
And also, last shout out for me really is, of course, Nap on the Renex. And he was a scary crocodile. He was the guy who got the first blood. Didn't really show up in laning phase. He got priority, but you expect that in the matchup anyway.
He did.
His team fights were very scary. I think he flashed onto Archer and killed him a good 3 times when he was looking to really start trying to stack up the Rage Blade, cleaning up some fights. Just didn't give him the option to.
No, and it's been honestly amazing kind of watching this CGA team really kind of turn on over the last month or so. Obviously, though, we have at least 2 more games, potentially a full 4 still left in this series. V3 facing off against CGA. CGA picking up that first win. We're going to go on a very short break while we just synchronize everything back up over on the back end and also get ready for the second match facing off V3 against CGA. We'll see you all very, very soon. Thank you so much.